So pretty good. Pretty good. Not bad. Not bad. Patting ourselves in the back. Alright. So episode? Sure. VodCast number 49. I know that it's 49 because I went through the YouTube today and I labeled all of them. So yeah, and they're in order. So they don't just say VodCast, I guess. They actually say like what the podcasts are about. We've covered a lot of things. But something that we never covered apparently is the DM NPC. The DM NPC. So, as always, you're gonna lead us into this by telling us what do we mean when we say DM NPC. We're just jumping right into it, right? Like we're not waiting for anybody to show up in chat. We're just gonna do it.
Okay. A GM NPC. So I think, I guess the way I would kind of like classify that is it's an NPC that is used by the GM as a consistent tool to help move the game forward or provide assistance. It's an NPC that gives the GM an in-world way to keep the game moving forward. I think that's it.
That feels like the best way that it's used. I don't know if that's always the way it's used. I don't know if it's
okay, that's the way it should be. That's what it should be.
All right, so we'll put ideally.
Ideally, yeah, that's what a GM NPC should be. And then
it is, yeah. Okay.
Now, sometimes where this can go wrong, or how it comes out sometimes, is that it's a NPC the GM uses to be a player in their game.
Right. That's the negative, right? That's the negative side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the other side of the coin.
All right. So first off, understanding the DM NPC. And you're talking about the purpose and the role of the DM NPC in Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, but all tabletop RPGs.
Yeah.
I
think any narrative
with an NPC, right? Any game with an
NPC.
Okay.
Any game that has NPCs and some type of narrative focus or something like that, because I guess even if you don't have one, I mean, you can still be a player for the GM.
Okay.
If you do it that way.
So here's the thing. Okay, next, when the DM wants to play the game too, I don't know if I agree. I think that's the worst reason.
Yeah.
That's the worst reason. But that's okay. We're gonna put that in there too. So here's the thing. Non-player character, right? If you're here by accident, you're like, oh man, look at those two handsome men. They're talking about, what is this, Dungeons & Dragons? I never heard of this before. I'm gonna come in and watch them. Alright, so in tabletop RPGs, the players make their player characters. They're the main characters, ideally, of the story. And they drive the story forward. And the story evolves based on the things that the player characters do. There is another person at the table, the DM, and the DM is everything else in the entire world. They are the plants, the trees, the rocks, the stream, the forest, but they're also the mayor and the barmaid and the little kid you saved from the burning house and the prince you saved from the dragon, and like all these things. They're everything else in the entire world. Those are non-player characters, so they're actors in the world that are controlled by one intelligence, which is the DM. So they generally are not. They don't shine as bright as the player characters, and they should never outshine the player characters, right? Because they exist to help the players experience and tell the story, right? That's the non-player characters, and that's everything. The monsters, the townsfolk, the bandits, the villains. At what point does an NPC become a DM, a dungeon master, or a game master NPC? At what time do they get that promotion for good or for ill, right? That's something that we need to sort of identify, I think, before we can really move forward. So chat says, I feel like if a DM PC isn't mechanically active, then it's just an NPC. That's an interesting theory.
Yeah, I mean that's like saying like until the GM jumps in and like assumes control of the NPC. Mm-hmm. I mean that's when they become I guess like literally that's when they become a GM NPC. But
I'm gonna disagree. Yeah. I'm gonna disagree with that one also. I guess they could also be a DM NPC via taking the narrative reins too, taking the role of both DM and main character. Oof.
Main character. Oof.
All right.
So, I think I know where you're going with this, and you can we'll see. I'm gonna shoot this out, and you can tell me.
Okay.
And you can say what you're gonna say. But what makes an NPC different from a GM NPC is when that NPC is helping do some of the outside world, but in an in-world way, things that a GM would do. So like, helping the characters find a narrative goal, helping the characters facilitate, gameplay. Like if they're having trouble making a decision, that GM NPC is there to keep them on focus. Like it's there to help the GM keep the game, overarching the big G game going.
Okay. So, yes, again, but that is the positive, right? There are two types of DM NPCs. That's what we need to understand. An NPC becomes a DM NPC when the DM is utilizing that NPC a lot with a frequency that is nearly equal to the amount of spotlight time that a player character would have. That is how I feel a DM NPC is defined. If an NPC feels like another PC as far as like their importance and their ties to the story and their screen time, for a lack of a better term, right? Spotlight time, you might say, then you are dealing with the DM NPC. Now, as a child, because I've been playing this game for 30 years, I have my first experience with a DM NPC, and it was a bad one. As many people's experience with DM NPCs have been bad. And if you talk about a DM NPC, it's a trigger, right? Like people will be like, that's bad, right? That's the knee-jerk reaction. DM NPC, that's bad. That's bad. DM NPC is bad. And most of the time, the way that DM NPCs exist, I don't even want to say are run or planned out, but just exist, is bad. And here's why. When we're running a game and there's 4 or 5 players, and if you've got 6 or 7 players, you need to stop. I'm going to say that all the time. Just too many players. But you've got 4 or 5 people, God forbid 6, 7, or 8 people. They all got together to play D&D for tabletop for 3 to 4 hours. That's got to be divided among all those people with relative equity. Not necessarily equally, but everybody's got to feel like they didn't waste their time coming to sit at the table and play tabletop because they want to feel like they got done the things that they like to do at the table. Like maybe they don't want to role play, but they want to crush some monsters. Maybe they want to discover some lore, right? So you have to be very careful, right? When you have such a limited resource already, you got 1 pizza and you're trying to feed 4 or 5 kids this pizza, right? Pizza's cut into 8 slices. You're already struggling if you got 5 players because how are you going to split up 8 slices of pizza 5 ways, right? If you look at it like that, and then you remember that the DM is literally every other thing in the world. You're the summon monster, you're the familiar, you're the main bad guy, you're their best friend, you're their childhood friend who betrayed them, you're the mayor, the shopkeeper, the fisherman, the fish that the fisherman caught. You're everything in the world. You have plenty of spotlight time, you have plenty of screen time. You get to constantly play the game. For the whole 3 or 4 hours, you are constantly playing the game because you're playing a different game. Right? All this bullshit about the DM is just another player at the table. No, they're not. That's like saying the director of a movie is just another actor in the movie. Sometimes the director of the movie is an actor in the movie. But that doesn't mean that when they're in the director's chair, they're the same as an actor. That's not the same thing. They are there for a different reason, and they're performing a different function. But this is a good comparison, because having a DM NPC is like a director who also cast themselves in their own movie, right? Because if you have an NPC that is getting the same amount of attention and screen time and play and interplay with the other players and the story, that is when you have crossed the line into a DM NPC. The DM NPC is always there. They're always with the party. They're rolling on checks. They want a share of the treasure, goddammit. You know, like they're there. Like they're a part of the party. That is when you have a DM NPC. That is yes. To me, that's the line that gets crossed. Is a DM NPC is an NPC that gets a lot more attention, screen time, and development.
I guess one way to say it is that it gets bad when it becomes a DMPC instead of a DM NPC.
Correct. So the toxic example is DMPC, not DM NPC. When I was a kid, the first D&D group I ever joined as a player, our DM had us meet his character. Like his character that he had as a player when he was a player, that was the first like mentor NPC we met. Like, so his higher level character was mentoring our characters, and he would do all of our like toughest shit for us. You know, like a dragon shows up and he kills it with his magic. Our first dragon fight, we didn't even get to kill the dragon because his character was there training us, and he killed the dragon. And it became, and like we meet like a sexy NPC, right? We're all like 13-year-old boys. We're like, this is exciting. A sexy NPC, an elf lady. Oh man, she immediately fell in love with the DM NPC, right? Like the DM. So yeah. And then he roleplayed with himself, right? It was very awkward. It was awkward enough that 30 years later, I'm still traumatized about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it happens, right? It happens. So this was a 13-year-old boy. He's gone on to become like an actual third-party publisher, developer. God bless. Good stuff. He works on A5E. I knew he was going to be great because he was a great designer. He just wasn't a great DM. But he's also 13, right? So you did a lot growing up, I guess. It is very tempting, right, to cast yourself in your movie, right? To be the director and producer of a movie, and then, like Tom Cruise, right? Like, he produces his own movies. Sometimes he directs his own movies. And then, of course, he wants to star in his own movies. And then maybe not the best way to handle D&D, though, or tabletop, right? But the temptation is there, right? Like, this is such a cool adventure. I'll run it, but man, I wish I could have played in it. I wish I could have been in this. And then you're like, well, I mean, maybe I could. I don't know. I mean, I could always throw my character in there, and if they happen to recruit my character, I mean, I guess I'm kind of there. I'm playing it, and yeah, that's bad, right? This is not your opportunity to play in the campaign that you wound up running. Like, everyone loves you for your sacrifice, right? Like, you were the only person willing to run Curse of Strahd. It doesn't mean that you get to make your own cool Simon Belmont character and play that character alongside everyone else. I've heard of groups that are 100% okay with this. They're 100% okay with the DM having a PC. A lot of times, these are smaller groups. So, like, a group of, like, if you got a group of 3 people, having the DM have a DM PC that, doesn't spoil things for you and is there to, like, support and things like that, that can work. Like, the DM PC can work if everybody's on board. A group of, like, 4 or 5 people, God forbid, 6, 7, 8 people, we don't got time. There's no time for you to also be a player on top of everything else. that you are doing. Okay? Now, positive examples of a DM PC is if they are there as an ally, a mentor, a plot driver, right? I had a 4th edition group. They were new to tabletop, and they, for lack of a better term, were just not very imaginative, right? Like they kind of just took every situation that came at them and dealt with it, but like they had a lot of trouble coming up with what to do next. And they sought out an NPC mentor, and this was just the quest giver that was like, here's your quest, go do it. And one session they're like, homie, can you just come with us? Can you just come with us? And then, I as the DM, right, because I pay attention to what my players are doing and stuff, and I was like, they really need this. Like, they need this. So I was like, sure. This dude comes out of retirement, and he's going to travel with you. He's an old-ass knight. He's going to travel with you, and he's going to guide you, and then meta, right, OOC, if it ever oversteps, you tell me, right? And for that group, that never happened. They loved that NPC. They relied on that NPC. And at the end of the campaign, when that NPC sacrificed himself to like help defeat the bad guy and everything, they were crying. They were just like, it was good. It was an amazing part of the game for them. It was never, this NPC is better than us, this NPC knows all the things that we don't, this NPC is doing all the work. That's the difficult part of using this effectively. First, you got to overcome the stigma, right? Of like, oh, you just wanted to be a player, but you couldn't, so now you're making a player, you're trying to be a player and a DM at the same time. People do not like that. They do not like that. So you got to overcome that, and then you do have to use these guys very sparingly, and like they nudge and they support and they build you up, and then they maybe break tension, and then maybe they fill in gaps, but they never ever should outshine any of the player characters, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's kind of my thing, is like, I think that the DM NPC is an incredible resource, but it is a dangerous resource because it can
double-edged sword.
Yeah, it can be interpreted by the players very negatively. Players can bring a lot of negative baggage, like maybe when they were 13, they had to watch their DM make out with himself, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's some baggage there. Let's check out chat real quick. Feels like Curse of Strahd has a number of DM NPCs. Yes, and without too many spoilers, Curse of Strahd has something called a fated ally. This is baked into the raw published adventure. Is that every time you play Curse of Strahd, there is like a 95% chance, 99% chance, I think it's 95, something like that, that you will have one particular NPC that is like going to help you. Like they're fated to help you. You'll find them and you'll help them and they'll help you, and they're going to be the best fucking NPC you've ever had. Every time you play Curse of Strahd, that's supposed to be a thing raw per the adventure. And that NPC, you would assume, right, is going to end up being your DM NPC, because once they find it, they're going to travel with the party, they're going to fight alongside the party, they're going to gain power and loot alongside the party, they're going to get injured alongside the party. So like that is baked in to that particular adventure. Strahd himself feels like a DM NPC. Oof. You ain't wrong. This is a tough adventure for DM NPC to talk about, but yeah. So, like, I don't think that Strahd is a DM NPC because he shouldn't be traveling with the party. There is a temptation when he is on screen to really like showboat and ham it up and be like, I'm strong and I'm the best and I'm the
I mean that's always the thing of like showing the BBEG.
Yeah, but
in front of the local party.
that's the BBEG, bro. Like I don't know I don't know how Strahd hurt you, Caden X. I mean I do. Scottrick told me, but you don't have like don't bring that baggage up in here, okay? Strahd is a BBEG. He is not. He's a big bad evil guy. He is not a DM NPC. A DM NPC is almost always with the party.
Mean.
They could certainly be a favored NPC. I've been accused, and this is completely like out of left field. I've been accused of a certain Titaness of Death being a favored NPC. Like I give her preferential treatment, and like maybe I adjusted her stat block a few times. Like maybe I made her like way cooler than the adventure was supposed to make her. Like I've been accused of that, like a favored NPC. But I wouldn't say that's a DM NPC. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not like my character that I made up and I'm playing that character, right? Like, but yet I could kind of see where you're going though, Caden X. I feel like if somebody got too into the role of Strahd, they wouldn't want to lose, right? Or if you're too into being the BBEG, you would be like, oh, well, when you go to deal the killing blow, they teleport away. Or, for this fight, I'm rolling all my dice behind the screen. Because I got to make sure that this guy is always cool. Like, I do not want the first attack that he makes to be a nat 1. Like, yes, in that way, I think there is some, like, DM NPC-ness that can go in there. Like, overly attached. If you are overly attached, that
can happen with any BBEG, yeah.
Overly attached, yeah, that's a good one. DM becomes overly attached, to an NPC.
Yeah.
And Curse of Strahd is another great example for that, is because this isn't too much of a spoiler. You meet them like within 2 sessions of playing the game. There's this redhead in the campaign, and a lot of campaigns, it doesn't work out well for this redhead. And I have read examples and heard examples where the DM is like, this redhead NPC is too precious. I can't let anything happen to them. And there's a certain unfairness there of like them doing everything they can to keep that thing safe and keep that person out of trouble and make up for that person's mistakes. And then I do kind of feel like, oh yeah, that's definitely a DM NPC situation right there. See, I could kind of see that. More so like too attached. The GM or DM becomes too attached to an NPC, and then they start to gain those benefits and the drag of, the NPC. Okay, I got it.
They start cheating for the NPC.
Yeah, they start cheating for him, start cheering for him. I mean, if people didn't know how procedural our Nightfall game is, I think that it could be argued real hard that, like, your fated ally is my DM NPC. Like, I think it could be Yeah, it could be argued real hard. And I always am aware of that when I'm, like, playing in the Curse of Strahd games, that I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I want those particular NPCs to be DM NPCs, in the right ways. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I would say for sure that our fated ally in Nightfall has been we could all consider him a GM NPC, not PC, NPC. And I think you're doing a great job of making sure that he doesn't outshine us, but he's very, 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 very helpful.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly what we need.
And in the example of the redhead, I had heard examples of that redhead being immediately off-boarded somewhere, being ignored, being just fucking killed. So one of the things I did in preparation for that campaign was like figure out how can this DM NPC immediately be welcome into the party, right? Like, and in our campaign with the injury system, it was being a doctor, right? Like, she good at medicine. Like, you're always getting the shit kicked out of you. Here's this NPC that the only real thing she does is fix you and bandage you. You know what I'm saying? She run around fixing you and bandaging you. What's another thing that she could bring that you need in a Gothic horror game? Positive attitude. Right? Like, everything is grim and dark and gloomy, but here's this NPC that is always positive and always full of life and laughter. So like I was like, those are the two things that she can bring to the party that won't outshine, right? Like she's pretty, but she's stinky, right? Like she's cool, but she's an annoying dork. But she's also good at healing. And even though there were other healers in the party, ain't nobody complaining about extra healing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because that gives them a chance to do other things besides run around and be a heal bot for everybody.
I mean, when not spoilers, after a couple sessions ago, after that happened, it kind of the party like.
Yeah, and that's when I think when you know that you've done the DM NPC right is when they're gone, the party misses them. Do you know what I mean? Like. If the party's like, oh, thank God they're gone, then they probably weren't doing a great job with that DM NPC.
Or they're a good BBG.
Or they're a good BBG. Yeah. Let's see. Easy to lose perspective when DM PCing. Then you end up as Tarantino casting himself in Dusk Till Dawn in the role of the side character who existed just to drink tequila off of Salma Hayek's toes. Yeah, I mean that's oddly specific, but yeah, that's Yeah, exactly. So one of the main things that comes up when people talk about DMPCs is when people have been in games where the DM has brought back past characters, perhaps one they played, or someone else, and forgot to have those be there to support the new story, and instead have an emotional attachment that leads to them having to seize the reins of the narrative. Yikes. So a great example of this is I listened to Dungeons and Daddies podcast, and I thought it was great. It was aimed at my particular demographic, obviously, and it hit all the right, notes for me. I was like, it's hilarious, it's irreverent, it's inappropriate, it's really fun. It was really fun. They finished that campaign and they tried to do a second campaign, and like whenever the second campaign, like I think whenever the numbers on that campaign start to dip, they bring in the characters from the previous campaign. It feels like Critical Role does that also. Like Series 3, they're always referencing Series 1. Because like they want to kind of like get those feels going, right? The nostalgia from an earlier, better time. And yeah, I think that can be really tricky when you bring someone else's character in without their permission even, and start running them as an NPC like that. That's happened. I've been there. I've experienced that as a player. It feels bad. I've made the mistake of doing that as the DM before, of like running people's characters as NPCs in other games. And then people are like, oh, I remember this character. Oh man, my friend Wes is really bad for it. He loves the idea of like the cinematic universe of games, right? So he loves peppering in player characters and NPCs from other campaigns into like the campaign to kind of be like, remember this? Hey, Easter egg. And sometimes it works as a gag. Sometimes it's fun, but like sometimes, yeah, as Butler Log pointed out, sometimes it can derail things because now everybody's thinking about the past or thinking about what could have been. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you bring in an NPC from a past who is stronger than the party, kill them off for just dramatic. Oh, okay. If you bring in past characters and NPC and they are stronger than the party and just kill them off for dramatic effect, that's another oddly specific example. Did that happen to you? Because that's awful if that happened to you. Man.
I mean, it's the idea of what you said with the mentor quest giver.
Mm-hmm.
Like if that was a past character, have them be supportive, not steal the spotlight like we said, and then kill if there's gonna be a moment where the parties are gonna go, maybe they're willing to sacrifice themselves for the party, and that's a way to steal the party and get them to keep moving forward, and as well as send off an old character if something you wanna do.
Here's another good example of another toxic example is we already covered spotlight stealing, avoiding scenarios where the DM NPC overshadows player characters. Player agency, ensuring DM NPCs don't dictate the player's choices or direction of the story, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Yeah, you don't want the NPC that's traveling with the party to be like, we are doing this, we will do this. Or say you're in a game like Dragon Lords, where there's like an Oath of Fellowship. For the love of God, don't swear your DM NPC into the Oath of Fellowship and then make the Step 1, don't swear an NPC into a PC's Oath of Fellowship. Step 2, if you made the first mistake, for the love of God, don't make any decisions, because then you are forcing all the players at the table.
Kill that NPC off.
Yeah, you're forcing all the players to abide by. That's crazy. And
if you made that first mistake, kill that.
I've heard about it happening many times. And another one is over-reliance. This is a powerful tool in your tool belt, but you can't use it to clean up all your messes, right? You can't be like, oh shit, I forgot to tell them about this thing, or oh, they didn't find this secret MacGuffin that they were supposed to find, and I'll just have the NPC have found it off camera. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you do that, I'm gonna just say too many times, because I feel like, I mean, once or twice, maybe it's okay. But like, your DM NPC can't always be like pulling out of their back pocket, like, don't worry, guys, I found the MacGuffin off camera. Like, you can't be doing that. Like, that's really bad. Because it undermines the fact that this isn't a video game, right? That you can miss something. You can make mistakes that are very costly. And if you're letting that DM NPC be a airbag,
Ex Machina.
Deus Ex Machina. Yeah, if you're just letting them kind of go in and solve all the problems that get created, then you are you're kind of eliminating some of the actual game.
I mean, that's limiting player agency. You're making decisions don't matter.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, it doesn't matter because DM NPC will take care of it, right? Like, oh, if we screw up, it doesn't matter because DM NPC will take care of it. Okay. So we've talked about what it is. There's benefits to it. There's also pitfalls of it. Let's talk about how do you make an engaging and likable DM NPC? Like, how do you do that? And I'm gonna hit the ball over to you, because like, what have you learned thus far in your four-year journey? It's been 4 years now.
Yeah, 4 years. It's 4 years now. Yeah.
So what have you learned in your 4 years?
So I think I've only had one GM NPC in all the games that I've ran, and that was Magic Grandma in Rhyme. Every other time,
she was definitely a DM NPC. Yeah.
Yeah, and ever since then, I myself have tried to avoid having an NPC stick around for too long. In terms of one that's supposed to be there for driving plot, I'm more of a person who would rather just step outside of game and be like, hey, this is what's going on. You guys can make these type of decisions or come up with something on your own, but this is what you know so far, so go ahead, as a way to drive the plot forward rather than have an NPC do it in character. But in terms of just making NPCs that, even if it did turn into a GM NPC, make sure that it's likable. It's one of those things of making them helpful or making them entertaining in terms of whatever's going on in terms of the theme of the campaign. So like, we had one NPC that in Cyberpunk named Jeff. It was actually created by Leah. We had a moment where like, okay, you have some type of history with this gang. Do you have an NPC that you've talked to? You have a contact with this gang. You can give me a name and we'll bring them in. I have art for the different types of people from that gang. And so she said, okay, she has this person named Jeff. And so we made him, and they helped him out during the first mission. And I've had him, when there's a random encounter, I've had him showed up, just being in trouble and then running off. But like, giving them personality and some type of more than just one dimension, to make give something for the PCs to find out what's going on with him. Maybe they're interested or not. Make them something the PCs want to interact with. Now, how you do that, it really depends on the group and their characters.
Do you feel that Jeff was a DM NPC? Or do you think he was just a memorable and likable NPC?
memorable and likable NPC because he had never at one point, helped guided the players, was used to move the plot forward. He was just a comedic relief, show up for a bit, something happened, and then go off. And then they sometimes invited him to go on parties and stuff like that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, without too many spoilers, what can you tell us about Magic Grandma? Your one, according to you, your one and only DM NPC. So, without too many spoilers for that campaign, walk me through Magic Grandma. So,
because it was my first time GMing and stuff like that, and I heard all those stories about GM NPCs and, going off of the Rhyme subreddit, people were talking about how Magic Grandma could turn into like a GM NPC, so be careful. I made sure that the only time she really did stuff is when you guys asked her, and that's why she was so bad in combat too.
Real bad in combat. She was fucking trash.
So I was trying to make sure she didn't do it. She wasn't. And this is I try to make her there in terms of knowledge of like, okay, this is the stuff that I want you guys to help me do this.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's something you guys already care about doing too, which in this case you guys were good sports, is like, moving the plot forward with whatever that was going on with the game. But I tried my best to not have her try and take any spotlight whatsoever. And what happened to her at the end, that was raw. That was part of, raw inside the adventure of what happens to her in the end. And so it was like, I guess they thought about that in the beginning too. Like, this person should show up, do this, and then that happens.
Yeah.
In terms of like what I've learned from her, and I kind of want to try this. I might try this a little bit more with Strength of Thousands, is because since there's so many NPCs and some of them are teachers.
Yeah.
Like having maybe like a rotating GM NPC for certain parts of the story.
Yeah.
So like, you at some point you might have a teacher that is like with you guys doing stuff, and that'll be, they'll be there to help guide. But overall, I think for Magic Grandma, what I learned is that it's okay to have them be a little bit more helpful.
Okay, so I'm gonna blow your mind. You actually in that campaign had two DM NPCs.
Are you saying Quan?
Quan was definitely a DM NPC.
You think so?
He traveled with the party. He fought alongside the party. He had his own opinions. We valued what he thought, and his feelings influenced our decisions. In a way, he was more of a DM NPC than Magic Grandma because you didn't realize that you were running him as one. You were so worried about Magic Grandma that you allowed yourself to actually run Quan as a really good DM NPC.
See, for me, I felt him as just as an NPC companion, rather like a sidekick. But I guess if you think about it, I guess that is a GM NPC in the case, yeah.
Yeah.
Not especially since what we've been talking about today, yeah.
So you were doing it, man. You were doing it. Yeah. Whew. All right. So let's see. I am Mr. V says, I have 3 rules for accompanying NPCs. They don't make decisions or directly recommend what to do next. They don't dominate combat or skill checks. They don't interact with other PCs before player characters.
Other NPCs before other players.
Before player characters. TBH, I in part created these rules in an attempt to emulate Crash's amazing portrayal of Kyra. That's another DM NPC that right out of the box, without too many spoilers, they tell you, they're like, this is the DM NPC for the campaign. Make sure the players like this character. Like it might as well just say that in the book. Because I remember reading the adventure and being like, damn, okay, this is a DM NPC? Like right away, this is a DM NPC? She's just always going to be traveling with the party? Oh man, this is going to be a hard sell. Like, people don't like DM NPCs. I remember 5 or 6 years ago reading the adventure and being like, this is going to be a hard fucking sell. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, this bitch is gonna be with the party all the time? Like, they're not gonna be okay. Yeah.
And if you have another bard in the party,
oh yeah, like this is rough. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is rough. So I learned, I think, a lot about DM NPCs from Kyra, from that character being so key into that adventure. And I've heard of groups where, you know, the DM's like, I do not have DM NPCs. My players do not tolerate DM NPCs. It is like the 5 of them and no one else. And so, like, she's like, she became a quest giver, you know, like, here's the quest. When you're done, meet me in this town. And then they go to that town, and she's like, great, here's your next quest. When you're done, meet me in this town. And then they go there, and she's just, you know, she's like the Deckard Cain, right? Like, she hangs out by the fountain, gives you quests.
Just
right?
shows up.
Yeah. I will say, going off of Deckard Cain, in Diablo 4, you constantly had an NPC, a DM NPC with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like your Strength of Thousands rotating DM NPC thing. Like, you constantly had an NPC with you because it was a great storytelling tool. It was so much better than, like, finding journal entries. Just, like, fucking hate that shit. Like, I fucking hate finding journal entries. I would much rather travel with an NPC.
They don't voice them.
Yeah, exactly. I would rather travel with an NPC who's like, I'm involved with this, and I'm going to tell you how I'm involved and how you're involved and how we're involved. Like,
be my therapist for a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm having a crisis of faith. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a nice way to break up the monotony of you know, the constant looting and grinding that is Diablo. It was a very strong storytelling tool, and that is what a DM NPC should be, and what you can get from a DM NPC if you do it right. And it's hard to do right. Let's see. So let's talk about this. They don't make decisions or directly recommend what to do next.
I don't necessarily agree with that first one. I think they could, but you have to frame it in a way of them being a person in the world, being like, hey, if you got, I mean, maybe you could do this, and they can't always be right.
Oh. All right. So here's the takeaway on that. I like to do it as an opt-in. All right. So for the most part, my NPCs, unless they are passionate, which is the role-playing aspect, right? Unless they are passionate about something, they will let the party decide. And if the party says, what do you think? Then per their role-playing cues, they will say what they think.
Yeah.
And if you are role-playing the NPC correctly, they will not always be right, because they will be a fallible living person who is motivated by their own beliefs, biases, and goals. I will have an NPC just straight up say some shit if the players are doing something that is radically outside of their worldview, right? Like, I will not have them sit in the back seat and be like, well, you're killing kids again. Guess I'll just be quiet back here, even though I hate killing kids, right? Like, that's not realistic, right? You're gonna lose all of the work that you did to make that a believable NPC if you allow the NPC to have what defines them ignored and pushed aside. So I don't agree that they shouldn't make any decisions or directly recommend. I think that ideally it should be opt-in. Players ask for their opinion. Definitely they shouldn't always be right, and they should always be motivated by their role playing, even if that's like two things. Like this character never hurts children, and this character hates dragons, right? So now you have two things that this character is known for, right? So if you're going to go kill baby dragons, you better not have this DM NPC with you, because they ain't going to stand for it, right? Because they don't like killing kids, but they also don't like dragons. It's going to be a mess, right? Don't bring that person. They're going to be a mess. They don't dominate combat or skills. So we talked about Irene, we talked about Miss Redhead the healer, and we talked about Kyra the bard. All right. If I had a bard in the party, I would talk to the player meta. I would time out OOC, or, I actually read the adventure ahead of time, imagine that, and then I talked to my players ahead of time, imagine that, and I said, hey, there's a pretty important NPC in the game. She's a bard, and she can be a little competitive about bard stuff. Are you okay with a bard NPC being friendly rivals with you? And if they're like, I don't really like that very much, I say, okay, well, what if they, for you, decided like they wanted to just like, work with you and learn from you and just kind of like, and they say, no, I really just want to be the only bard. I want to be the only bard. Like, it's very important to me that I'm the only bard in the party. No NPC bards. I'm the only bard in the party. And then you say, okay, I'm going to change the NPC, the story NPC, and they are going to be no longer a bard. They are going to be a writer and a historian, and they're going to follow you around in that way, right? Like, talk to your players. Your players, at the end of the day, this is their game and their story. You have every other thing in the world that you get to play as.
Yep.
You are the one that has to compromise in this case. In this case, you are the one that has to compromise. With Irenia the Doctor, I can't imagine any of my Curse of Strahd games being like, we don't want more healing. This is infringing on my identity. Like, no. Like, but if somebody was like, hey man, I made this character to be the healer, and I just don't like the fact that they're a healer, I'll be like, okay, they're a trained healer, they will be your nurse. Whatever you need, your doctor. You make the calls, they will always be there to help you. Whatever you need.
Aid action
all the time. And that's the thing, right? Like, I never volunteer the NPC to make the checks for the party if the party is like, none of us have survival. Does Corinna have survival? And then all 5 of their heads turn to look at Corinna, the scout, and she says, I have survival. And they're like, you're gonna roll survival from now on. Like, if it happens like that, then it's fine. But if somebody's like, I made a ranger and I'm really proud of my ranger, and you're like, cool, well, this chick's a much better ranger than you, so don't even fucking bother. You know what you need to do? You need to be like, oh, you're a ranger? What's your survival? And they're like, it's a +4. You need to be like, dang, Corinna, as you cross out +8, only has a +3. I guess you should be making all the survival checks. Maybe she could help you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, ain't nobody gotta know, baby. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody gotta know. Like, always move them into the background. Always move them into the background. So we're gonna put keep them in support. Keep them in the background. Opt in. Should always be opt in. Always opt in with these NPCs. Never push the NPC on them. Never push the NPC on them. Always let them decide like how much they want from that NPC. And the last thing that I and Mr. V said, they don't interact with other NPCs before player characters. And this is the same thing as they don't make decisions, and it's all 3 of the same guidelines. Opt in, not always right, and role playing. So a good example of this is there's a lot of characters in these older adventures that are rampantly racist. Keep in mind, in the 2nd and 3rd Age of Magic, Rangers got all of their class abilities from racism. So a lot of these old adventures, they're like, yeah, this guy hates orcs. If he sees an orc, he's gonna flip the fuck out. All of you are hypocrites if you enjoyed Baldur's Gate 3, but you think that this is bad. Okay? You're all hypocrites. If you think that Baldur's Gate 3 was cool, but you think that this is bad, you're all hypocrites. Here's why. There are NPCs in the game that you cannot put together, or they will try to kill each other. There are, like, literally 2 women trying to kill each other in the middle of the night because they can't get along. I will have NPCs that are traveling with the party flip out if someone or something that is part of their guiding roleplay is presented to them. So this whole don't interact with other NPCs before player characters is still solid advice, right? So like maybe Old Man Ranger, he hates orcs, but he's also a fucking professional. So the party goes to meet with like Chief Warrag, the orc chieftain, because they're trying to figure out, are the orcs actually raiding the local farms, or is it someone else? And spoiler, it is someone else. It's the hill giants. And I'm not going to ruin that for my players, right? My players have put their murder hobo hats in their bags. They have arranged a meeting with this chieftain. I'm not going to have racist 2nd edition ranger just pull out a gat and shoot this dude in the face in the middle of their meeting, right? Now he'll have the gat ready, right?
Yeah.
He's going to shoot that guy in the face as soon as there's a chance. He's going to shoot that guy in the face. But like, the party is telling the story, right? The party's actions are telling the story. So, yeah.
In those situations, the only thing I would probably do is have that, if you brought an NPC with them, I'd probably have that NPC cause a complication, but that's about it.
Absolutely.
And that's it.
So let's see, not always right, and then something of not always right can cause complications with certain NPCs. There we go. Alright, I like that. Okay, so other tips. Brief backstory and clear motives. That's pretty good advice. Alright, so if you're going to be traveling with this person, let them know what's going on. Like, let's talk about Baldur's Gate 3. Let's talk about Baldur's Gate 3. If a certain goth girl is like, I hate the goddess of the moon. I hate her. I hate her guts. And I hate everything about her. And I hate all her people. Well, now you know. Right? Mm-hmm. Now you know. Maybe you shouldn't bring her around when you're going to the temple of the moon god. Maybe you should bring this person with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, like don't keep this stuff a secret. You know what I mean? Like, if they recruited a guy and he's like, yeah, whenever I see minotaurs, I fly into a crazed blood rage because the minotaurs killed my father and I never got over it. That's good information to give the players so that they can kind of decide what's going on. If you got a character that's like, I hate dragons and I'll never kill a kid or I'll never let a kid die in front of me, put that shit out there so it doesn't become a game-breaking situation later, right? If they know that, like, Susanna cannot stand children being killed, and you're in a situation where there's children, and those children might get killed, you need to have that information up front. Like, that's a good way to do it. So, like, I feel like know those NPCs, give them some depth and some motivation, and share that information with the group. Like, let the group know, like, this is what they're about, guys. Like, this is what they're, no harm in that.
And I mean, if you're, there's many ways you can give it, give that information across. You can show it before they even interact with the NPC. Mm-hmm. You can have the NPC be, straight up just say it. Yeah. Or out of character, you can just say, so and so, seeing this person, you get this feeling from them.
Mm-hmm. Here's a good example. You're the heroes I've heard so much about. I want to kill Strahd. Is it alright if I travel with you? Because I heard you're trying to kill Strahd also. And then you're like, you want to join us because we want to kill Strahd? So your motivation is killing Strahd? And they're like, that's my motivation, is to kill Strahd. And you're like, get on in here. And then, like, 3 sessions later, you're like, well, actually, we all want to have sex with Strahd. Strahd's our boy. Like, now when the NPC's like, what? At least you know up front, right? That NPC that NPC told you when they signed up, right? When they signed up, they said, hey, this was the Strahd killing party, right? Like, yeah, that's great advice. Make sure you just kind of get that shit defined and put it out there. All right, what else? Balanced capabilities strong enough to be helpful. Magic Grandma. Here you go. Strong enough to be helpful. This is important, but not omnipotent. What a great way of putting that. You do not want it to feel like an endless escort mission, right?
Yeah.
You know, like that particular redhead. Sometimes the way that she's statted out in the adventure, it's an endless escort quest. It's so stupid. Like, make them capable, make them functional, make them helpful. It's not helpful if I have to keep you alive all the time. If I have to waste all my resources on you and I'm getting nothing back, I'm not going to want you around. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to want you around. Magic Grandma was shit in combat, but we never worried about Magic Grandma. Magic Grandma kept all of her spells for self-defense and keeping herself out of danger. And so we had no problem with Magic Grandma traveling with us, even though she didn't really contribute to combat. She didn't become a liability in combat.
Yeah.
That's the important part, right? You do not want the DM NPC to feel like a liability. No one's going to want those people around. Yeah. Limited screen time. Use them to enhance, not dominate, the gameplay. And beyond gameplay, I'm going to say the scenes, setting, and story. Because I think they're more important for those things than they are for gameplay, right? Gameplay assumes, like, you know, mechanics and stuff like that. But I feel like the best use of a DM NPC is, like, for example, if they're strangers in a strange land and the DM NPC is a native of that strange land, that native can fill them in on stuff, right? They could be like, oh, we're entering, you know, Brookshire. Brookshire is, it was ravaged by war, and so, like, there was, like, magical radiation in the earth, and there's a lot of sorcerers in this town, and ley lines run underneath the city. Like, that's pretty cool, right? If the NPC is giving you that information, like, you're building lore for the world without handing them something to read. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Without having that annoying urchin waiting at the front of the town that says, you need a guide in the town? 5 silver, I'll guide you around the town. Like, they have this NPC that travels with them and is like, I will teach you about the world that I know, right? And they're not always right, and they definitely have biases, right? Like, maybe they hate sorcerers, so they're like, Brookshire is a terrible town. It has a ley line beneath it that infuses the land and the water with magic, so there's a lot of people born here with sorcerer's powers, which are terrible and evil and, you know, unpredictable. You must be on your guard while you're here, right? That's like 2 different ways of telling them about this town from 2 different DM NPCs, right? Like, one that is like, hey, you know, magic's pretty cool, and one that's like, magic bad. I'm going to tell you why it's bad. And now we're getting the motives of that person, right? Like, that second NPC don't like magic very much. And that's another opportunity to tell that. All right. So let's see. Next up is limited screen time, enhanced, blah, blah, blah. Discuss the importance of NPCs' growth and evolution without derailing the main plot.
Yeah, so I'll say this has been done a lot in Odyssey for Mythic. A lot of the NPCs have changed along the way, whether from stuff that we've done, stuff that just happened to them, either from decisions we've made or decisions we've let them make or they've made and stuff like that. Just interacting with the NPC, interacting with the PCs too, like you know, it's not so much spoilers, but like Andronikos's like view on the gods and how the gods have, you know, kind of changed because of that.
Yeah.
You know, the giving them kind of what we've done with the B team document, giving them all like little side quests.
Yeah.
And how they've changed after the side quests.
And that's another opt-in, right? That's another opt-in where I was like, if you want, you can discover what their side quests are and help them with their side quests, and then that will power them up a bit and give them like more things they can do to help. And the first thing you guys did was be like, okay, well, we're gonna park the boat And we're not going to move the boat until we know every single side quest from every single person on this fucking boat. And then it was like, okay, if you're all in agreement, and that's what you guys were like, absolutely, that's what we want to do. Examples that I like, Corinna, that we mentioned earlier. When you guys found her, she's like a teenage girl that's trying to save a person that matters to her, and then she ends up being recruited by you guys and traveling with you guys, and a lot happened to this character. And then there is this growth, right, into a woman, into a warrior, into a leader, into a significant hero. That kind of stuff is incredibly rewarding narratively to be a player, and you are in effect leveling up something besides your own character, right? Like you can see the impact and the influence you're having on the world and the people in it directly, right? Because of those your effect on that DM NPC, right? Like you're a DM NPC on Thursday nights. He has definitely changed a lot. And continues to change based on the decisions that you make and the things that you guys experience together. And there are moments where he reaches out to you guys for advice and guidance, and then what you tell him does change the course of his entire life. You know what I mean? Like, these are great opportunities for role playing, which is covered by like scenes over here. All right. Real life examples from popular campaigns and personal experiences, which we've kind of hit that one pretty hard. And then we're at time. Yeah, we're at time. Yeah. So I see Destructor 92,000. Sounds like colonialism. Let's give the dwarves our dirty blankets next. I'm not really sure what that's in reference to. But
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but cool, man, cool. So anyways, I think that kind of covers it. My final take is this: DM NPC good. If you do it for the right reasons. So if you do the positive stuff, it's good. DM NPC can be bad if you do any of these, right? You gotta avoid becoming a player character. DM player character bad. Always bad. Unless ... you have a small group and the player and everyone in the group is okay with it.
And even when that's the case, still use the positive examples when you're doing it.
Absolutely. You don't want to outshine the players ever. Even when you're invited to be a player.
A good example is, and this is one of the first things I ever GM'd was the I Spire Peak. That was the first thing I pretty much ever GM'd was I Spire Peak. And inside that box, they had like a bunch of things for like NPC sidekicks. Of if you're gonna run, and like it's supposed to be designed so that it could be a one GM, one player game that you run through it. It's none really story related there, but the idea is that they gave you a set of NPCs that are kind of sort of built like NPCs, but weaker, and they give you advice on how to play them as a sidekicks to the player that's playing. And so anytime you're invited to have a GM PC,
I remember think of them that from the box set. Yeah, they had their own little cards. They had their own little cards and stuff. Yep. I am Mr. V says, one of the things I've been wondering about after seeing how Kyra overlaps with the Bard subclass is this. You can have a shared NPC for players. Well, funny you mention that. I have the B team system for my games, which is essentially 5 at a time shared NPCs who basically are like limited use magical items. They provide like a passive benefit and then one active benefit per short rest, just to kind of like be present without being too present.
Marvel vs. Capcom jump-ins.
Yeah, the jump-ins, Marvel vs. Capcom jump-ins. Now, again, going back to those smaller parties, I have run games for 2 players, 3 players, and 4 players where no one wanted, and these are older versions of D&D, where no one wanted to be a healer, right? No one ever wants to be the healer. So frequently throughout history, there have been NPC healers that were fully statted like clerics or fully statted, priests or whatever, that the party could be like, hey, I need you over here, or hey, go do that, and I would just like have them do what they're told to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that.
Elise.
Yeah, so that is definitely a DMPC for sure. Because Elise, exactly. Like when you guys were, needed that extra healing. All right, let's see. Anything else? I think we're good. Okay, great. Well, I hope everybody enjoys their Friday night, their weekend. It's normal play schedule for us moving forwards. In May, there will be a series starting on Sundays, a sort of mini West Marches game in the system Dragon Bane. So if you're on the server and you're interested in that, keep an eye out for that posting. It'll be soon because April's almost over. Oh my god, it's almost May.
This weekend.
If you're not on the Discord, you're like, how do I get on the Discord? There's a little panel below the stream on Twitch where
is there?
Yeah, there's a panel now. Yeah.
Oh yeah, look at that.
It used to be invite only. It was very exclusive. But now you can click on the panel and get in. But don't worry, we kick fast and we ban hard. So I mean, make sure you join. If you join it, make sure you behave yourself. And yeah, it's I got a game tomorrow morning. Got games on Tuesday. Games all the time. New games being posted all the time on the server. I look forward to the DM NPCs that we will be meeting in Strength of Thousands, and I hope to God that the DM NPCs for my Curse of Strahd games make it to the finish line. It'd be really nice. I don't think they will, but it'd be really nice if they did. And yeah, if you're interested in this stuff, we have the B Team document that we like to use in a lot of our games, and I think that that's a great way to have DM NPCs and have a mechanical way of restricting them from becoming too involved, too much of a spotlight hog, too overpowering. So it's a good compromise, I think. All right, everyone have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Alrighty, take care.